Welcome back to the Scholomance Academy Arena Car Tier List Pre-Release Valuation Podcast Stream VOD. This is the Light Forge. We are the Grinning Goat. I am Adwicta.
This is Merps. You got it. You almost had it. You had it during school.
Scholomance.
Scholomance.
Why are we not schooling anymore? I thought the whole thing was that it was school of mans.
All right, whatever.
That doesn't even make sense. It's called Academy in the end. Who's like the school of something Academy?
Well, no, it's not actual school academy. It's like it's there to.
I mean, it's just a terrible name for an academy. Okay, I'll come out and say it. Even if it were easy to pronounce, it would be a terrible name for an academy because it's invoking school and it's already an academy.
Okay, great.
All right.
We are here to talk about the top neutral cards from the expansion Scholomance Academy. Now, Adwicta, would you like to tell people what it means when we talk about a neutral class?
A neutral class is all the classes put together, which is usually a pretty good valuation for the card, unless the card does ridiculous things in different classes. And we'll get to that, and we'll explain more about what that means. But just know that we literally just take 10, like all 10 classes, and then we give each of them a 10% share of the pie in terms of the value for each of those classes. And that is what the neutral class is. So it's a good way to look at an overview, but if you look at a card and you're like, oh, this isn't good, and then you're like, oh, in my head, when I think about playing the game, I am a mage. Well, go check the mage score, right? It's probably not that different if it's a normal card, but for some cards, it's like vastly different.
So we are going to start off by talking, the legendaries will come at the end. Okay?
Yes.
So when we talk about the top neutrals, don't be surprised and be like, whoa, what about this legendary? That comes at the end. Yes, there are good legendaries. Just small spoiler alert.
Yep, so only commons, rares, and epics will be in this section, and only the top ones. And just so you guys know, we did some algorithm updates. Yeti is now a 113, because I know a lot of people use Yeti as a barometer of sorts. That is the highest Yeti's been in a while. Not because Yeti's gotten particularly better, but we're now recognizing that Yeti has been better all along than we've been giving it credit for. So in case you're centering on things, 113 is where Yeti is in the neutral class. Let's just jump into it. No further delays. Mostly because this is not a card that you can build up. And if you ever try to build up this card, which is the number one card in this set, and it is a common, but if you really try to build it up, you're going to be disappointing your audiences. So I'm not going to build it up anymore. There will not be any more drum rolls. I will not keep talking and saying words, building up to this card, this amazingly common, very normal, neutral card that doesn't really do a whole lot of things and should excite pretty much nobody.
No,
maybe me.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about Smug Senior. This is the number one neutral, non-legendary card. Now, that's a lot of caveats, all right? And I think people will see why. So Smug Senior is coming in right now at a 136. It's about the same as a Rusted Raider, which I think we all recognize as a very, very good neutral card. Smug Senior is at 6 mana, 5/7. Taunt and Death Rattle add a 5/7 ghost with taunt to your hand. It's just the same thing. It's the same thing as a Smug Senior, except it's a ghost.
It's a twin spell. But it's on a Death Rattle.
Minion twin spell.
It's a minion twin spell on a Death Rattle. 6 mana, 5/7 taunt. That's so normal. This is like how stats used to work. This reminds me of Tazdingo. You remember Tazdingo?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Tazdingo. Also, like, if you can just look at Smug Senior. I think some people might also just be surprised. It's like, oh, wait, this is like super reasonable, right? Why isn't it even higher? And part of the reason why a card like Smug Senior, which metas ago would have been bonkers insane, is just because of what Adwicta was talking about. Everything generates cards now. So does the card that Smug Senior generate, which is itself, essentially, does it still
Which
matter?
is another not very good card.
Well, it's good. It's good.
It's a Tazdingo. It's like an okay card.
Yeah. Right. Does it matter? Yeah, of course it does, but it matters less than in previous metas in which a pretty good taunted 6-drop that spawns another pretty good taunted 6-drop would have been bonkers insane, right? We would be talking about it as one of the biggest meta changers we've ever seen. But because it's introduced in a meta in which a lot of card generation is at play here, it's only pretty good at a 136.
136 is the lowest that the top card in a set, like the top neutral, common / rare card in a set came in at since Witchwood, which was the Militia. If you remember, Witchwood was a very low power level neutral set. Ever since Witchwood, for like 3 freaking years now almost, we have gotten way overpowered neutrals for their top slot. So when I looked at it, I was like, oh, you know, like maybe this is like tamping down the power levels of neutrals. And then I thought back to Ashes of Outlands. And this really gets obscured a lot, but Ashes of Outlands did not have a powerful neutral either. The number one neutral we identified in that was like that's a common or rare was Frozen Shadow Weaver, which at the time was like also I think it was a 137 or something when it was released. Now it's a 140 something. The meta's shifted, whatever. Like it's more powerful in this meta than we predicted it was in the Ashes of Outlands meta, but only by like a few points. But that's another low top tier neutral like kind of set. So now in the year of the Phoenix, we have 2 back-to-back sets that have been kind of on the neutral sets in terms of the top end power level. Now, there are a lot of very playable, very good neutral cards in Ashes of Outlands, and we all had a lot of fun with them. You know, I don't want to like go down the whole list, but like Rusty Raider is one of my favorite cards in recent memory. So these are, and you'll see Scholomance Academy do kind of the same thing, but the top end being Smug Senior is wonderful for the game.
Yeah.
If you care about like basic arena stuff and Yetis.
Yeah, it's something that is pretty like innocent. It's not like a primordial Drake in which you look at it and you're just like, oh god, this thing is this thing is just unhealthy for the game, right? Primordial Drake, Twin Tyrant, those things, you just look at it and you kind of feel disgusted. Smug Senior, yeah, it is a lot of taunt, but it's a lot more manageable. You're like, okay, this is something that I can, you know, I can accept if this is the best neutral card in the set. I think that's fine. Of course, they do make it up for it with some stupid class cards. We'll talk about
We'll talk about the stupid class cards. There's always stupid class cards, though. The stupid class cards are more stupid than normal stupid class cards.
We have the stupidest class cards we've ever seen, I think. But all right, let's talk about the second.
No. I want to talk about the flavor of this card first. Yeah, okay. You got to know this is one of my favorite cards they've ever printed. Like immediately, like this is a Yeti that's at the power level of must draft. Can you imagine that? A Yeti being like a must pick neutral card? Like, okay, so someone asked before the stream started, hey, is there going to be another Twin Tyrant level card? Well, no, but it's surprisingly close. Smug Senior is a 136. Twin Tyrant, if you remember when it first came out, was like a freaking 160 or something, or 157 or something, like above 150 definitely. But Twin Tyrant is now only a 141. It's only a 141 because Dragon Synergies are like super dying. And because you have so many cards in your hand that like being a big card is just not as impactful because you're just unlikely to get to the point where you need big cards to stop running out of cards. You are only instead just like being provided an option of how to use your mana. So the largeness of cards is like less impactful in a meta where you just keep getting additional cards. Like Smug Senior is 12 mana. That's 12 mana you have to spend before you're done with this card. So when you have a bunch of these in the meta, this is not the only one either, like stuff that costs 8 mana just isn't as good. Like, and the Dragon Synergies are down. But Twin Tyrant is only 5 points above this card. So you have a Yeti-like kind of card, right? This is larger Tazdingo that gives you another larger Tazdingo in your hand. And it is at almost the same power level as a Twin Tyrant. That's so good. Like, the neutral game designer in me who wants to create a fundamental based on the board like gameplay, right, that we like from the original arena, looks at this as the top neutral, and this is wonderful for the meta. They're going to mess the meta up later on. But this card itself, it's anchoring this entire Scholomance Academy meta, and it is going to be a force for boringness, but for good. It will also extend the game so that you can use your crazy combos, which I think is its intended purpose. But in the arena, it will mostly just be neutral, neutral, neutral. All right. Now, I'll let you get on to the second card.
All right. You're done?
Yeah.
Okay. The second card, let's just get right into it. It's Voracious Reader. Now, there's a lot of explanation that is going to accompany this. So hold on before you riot, all right? Voracious Reader is a 2-mana 1/3 rare. At the end of your turn, draw until you have 3 cards. The neutral score for this is a 135. That score, once again, is the average of all the class scores. And when you look at something like Smug Senior doesn't move a lot from class to class. Voracious Readers, kind of.
Okay, Smug Senior actually moves quite a lot class to class because a lot of classes care about their health a lot. So that taunt being like 14 health, that's a bad example just because it actually does move.
Okay, well, no. But nothing moves as much as.
Oh, yeah, nothing's not going to move as much as this.
Nothing moves as much as Voracious Reader, sure. But yeah, Voracious Reader, this 135 score, just to preview it, it's being way pulled up by Demon Hunter's score, which is a 168. And that kind of makes sense because Demon Hunters run out of cards pretty fast, and this just really helps them out. Versus something like a Druid, in which Voracious Reader is a 122, which is a lot lower. You're looking at more than a 50-point difference, basically. So this score is just an average, but Voracious Readers is one of those cards in which this score just really doesn't reflect kind of how good it is from class to class.
Yeah, and we're talking class to class, but we're using the average decks in those classes. What you should think about when you're drafting is how good is this for my deck? And if you have a faster deck, I don't care what class you are, this is a freaking amazing premium card. This could be a 170 even if you're not a Demon Hunter, if you just drafted a fast deck. Now, I don't know if drafting a fast deck is particularly smart in this meta, or at least not one that's too fast. But if you're going to be drawing a lot of cards anyway, you might as well be able to play a lot of cards, right? And then you put this at the end, and all of a sudden you spend 2 mana to draw at least 3 cards, and then if you are on the board, which you really should be if you're playing that fast, it may survive a turn, and then you draw 3 more cards, or like 2 more cards, or whatever, and you've had this like ridiculous value coming in.
Yeah, so I'm guessing people are pretty curious about the scores. Demon Hunter is by far the
Demon
highest.
Hunter's like that. I'm looking at chat. People are like, "How is this in Hunter?" It's terrible in Hunter because Hunter's not a fast class.
Yeah, so if you guys believe that Hunters are aggressive, they can be aggressive. But think about what Hunters are these days. Hunters are mid-range card generation.
Yeah.
Like when you get beat by the best Hunters, like the ones that you typically face, they have the they have the Explorers, they have all of the cards that generate more cards, and they're playing this very mid-range Hunter style, which can be aggressive. They can flip the switch at any point and go face, but Hunter's card generation is quite insane. And really, the true sort of burn aggro, which just burn through your deck, try to use up all of your resources. That true style of aggro that really just exists within Demon Hunters. And if you try to play that style with Demon
Warlock,
Hunters, well,
kind of like
it's
harder. It's not as good, but like you can do it like better than Hunter.
But if you try to do that, then like Demon Hunters don't really have great ways of generating cards. They have ways to cycle, but they don't have great ways to generate more cards. So this card in Demon Hunter is just it's insane. Like it's a 170-ish, and I think if you play Demon Hunter, you'll understand. Yeah, it is just that good. But for other classes, quite a bit lower.
So this isn't just like a card for aggro class. It's also a card for anybody who can't draw cards. So it has a really high score in Shaman. That's actually its second highest score. And that's because Shaman can't draw cards. So it's just expecting you to run out. The algorithm's just like, well, you play this, your opponent plays this. You're going to run out of cards before your opponent because you're a freaking Shaman. And this card is great because you're usually on the board and stuff. This card's actually not the best for a super aggro deck because super aggro decks usually need to go face by the time they're running out of cards. So you are just drawing 3 cards. Right? So it's good. 2 mana, draw 3 cards is pretty damn good. But you know what's even better? 2 mana, draw 3 cards every turn. And if you're a Shaman, you can pull that off. Because you're protecting your board, you're playing the board game, and you are just like a little bit lower on cards than like your opponent. And then all of a sudden you have like 9 more cards than your opponent.
Alright.
Okay, so Voracious Readers. Coming in at 135, like Murph said, this is kind of the score doesn't really matter. Just know that it can be insane in the right deck. And if your deck is leaning that way, frickin' do it. This is a very good card.
Okay, next we have probably the most interesting card, in my opinion, the most interesting neutral card of the set. It's Transfer Student. This is coming in at a 133, which, if you have been paying attention, is very close. The 3 cards, Smug Senior is a 136, Voracious Reader is a 135, although, once again, that standard deviation is huge. Transfer Student is coming in at a 133, so very, very close. Transfer Student is a 2 mana 2/2 that says this is different effects based on which game board you're on. For the sake of time, I would not go over everything that this can be, but I will just say you can search it up on the Hearthstone wiki. There's a lot of sites that kind of show you exactly what this is. They're all good.
Okay,
all
so
really
basically half of them draw you or discover you or do something with a card. And the other half either buff something, like +1/+2 buff, or deals 2 damage. And then, or they are like mini bots, and they have like Divine Shield or Reborn or some stuff like that. So you have tempo versions, you have utility versions, and then you have a lot of draw card versions. There's one that is dormant, deal like damage when it comes out of dormancy. Like it gets fancy, but it depends on which board you're on. So you don't get to like pick it. You just kind of have to deal with it, but you know what board you're on. So you know, and when the card comes into your hand, you know what it's doing. So it's not like too random in terms of like what happens in an actual game. Like in Arena, I feel like it's not a random card.
Yeah. So look, this is always going to be pretty good. And once again, we're highlighting this as third, but the Voracious Reader, it's like that should have an asterisk next to it.
Yeah.
It
could be 50 points higher or 100 points lower depending on your deck.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, if you think that Transfer Student is like the #1 card over Smug Senior, I mean, it's only a 3-point difference.
Yeah.
And it is just really good. If you look at the effects, there's no bad effects. There really isn't. So, yeah, Transfer Student, if you think it's the best neutral card, sure, you know, I can get behind that. It's incredibly close with Smug Senior.
It is the cutest card. I was just talking about this with David Attenborough Says, our YouTube editor, who's going to be putting these up on YouTube after we're done with them late night tonight. I like the look of this fox. I don't know. Whoever did the art for this, I think they captured a look.
Are you sure you're not just a furry?
I mean, I like furry things, but not in that way.
We're learning a lot from this.
Since when did cute become sexualized? All right. I just wanted to say I found that what do you call it, anthropomorphized fox to be a cute drawing. This is the effect Brand New's having on me. I now have like a cute rating whenever I see something as well.
That's fantastic. Anyways, on to the next card. The next card is coming in at a 129, so still pretty close.
Yeah, these are all very close, by the way. Like, whenever we move something on the tier list by 3 points, it's not even in the changelog. Because, like, our margin of error for what we try to do. So, one, when we're doing the algorithm is always imperfect and uses a bunch of rounding and stuff like that. So, even if what we want to do and our equations are basically, like, correct, it still has a margin of error of something like 3 points because of rounding. and we're just not using the exact perfect like to all the decimals, and some things are like estimates. So these are all basically the same card. Basically, we're gonna have 3 cards. One's 29, 129, one's 128, and one's 127. So this is 129.
The next 3 cards are essentially the same score, and these are pretty similar to the ones that we talked about before.
Yeah.
So even when we get to the number 6 card, don't think that it's like, oh man, it's number 6. It must be some. No. They're pretty similar.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's within 10 points of number 1.
Yes. Crimson Hothead is a 4-mana 3/6 dragon, so it does have the dragon tag. Spell burst, gain 1 attack and taunt. Not bad. Look, nothing super fancy with this. What you get is you already get the stats that you're supposed to get. 3/6. You get the dragon tag, which still counts for something because DoD is still in the meta. And whenever you spell burst, gaining 1 attack and taunt to get a 4/6 taunt, that's just really nice. It's not the biggest spell burst ever, but you just get a lot extra with this. So you get the stats that you're supposed to get, and you get more with it. So 129. Remember, Yeti is a 113. So you just get extra points for all these little small bonuses.
Yeah. Like later in the game, you probably use it with a spell, and then it has the taunt, and it's a little better, but it has 6 health. It's probably going to survive to turn 5. Like things like you guys know how water elementals work. It's unlikely that if you play that on turn 4 that it dies. So it's a very good setup card. Like when you have spell burst cards, this is the kind of stuff you want. You want it to be more than overcurved on the health side, right? Like That's how the spell bursts work. So Crimson Hothead, it's a good card. It's like these are like, when we say good cards, these are not the super premium cards like you're used to seeing from before. I think overall the whole power level of this set and this whole meta on the neutral side is gonna be like okay. It's gonna be definitely better than what we've seen in the last 6 months. Because this is one of like the top 20 cards, like these cards, but they're in the same realm as like Troll Batrider, right? Like they're a little better than Bone Wraith. Like they're a little worse than Dark Iron Dwarf. We've upped the score of Dark Iron Dwarf quite a bit in a Classics revival that went with the Yeti scores going up too. But these are just like, what is it? It's really a great 4-drop. You're always happy to have it in your deck as a 4-drop. And this is kind of where the power level tops off for Scholomance Academy. Like, it's good. It's very good. Even if you trigger this, what does it become? It becomes a 4/6 taunt. What's a 4/6 taunt? Like a pretty insignificant 5-drop, right? This is great. Well, like when cards like this are your good cards, this is a great meta.
Yeah. All right. On to the next one. We have Fishy Flyer coming in at 128. Once again, the same. Fishy Flyer is a 4-mana 4/3 Murloc. It's got the Murloc tag. With Rush and Death Rattle, add a 4/3 Ghost with Rush to your hand. You just get the same thing, except without the Death Rattle. Not much to say about this other than, like, once again, this is card generation, right? This is exactly what Adulto was talking about, in that you have cards that generate more cards. 4 mana for 4 damage that sometimes, rarely, survives, is okay. But you get 2 okay cards, and it becomes a pretty good card.
Yeah.
And once again, in previous metas, this would have been absolutely insane, like bonkers. But because you have stuff like Smug Senior, also in the meta, and also all these other generating cards, the second body, or the second card for Fishy Flyer, you're talking about opportunity costs here. You're talking about a lot of things you want to spend your mana on, so that the extra value you get with the Fishy Flyer isn't as impactful as it would be in previous metas.
So I'm going to say something here about the algorithm that it's just true, and we couldn't fix it in time. So all the scores here for big cards and small cards, not medium cards, so like Fishy Flyer is fine, but for big cards and small cards, especially small cards that like to get played later on, they're off by like 5%. They're off by 5% because here's what happened. This set added so many freaking cards into your hand that it pushed our algorithm past the limits that it could previously handle, that we programmed it to handle, in terms of like how many cards you have in your hand in the late game. And so it's not playing enough turns anymore. Like past a certain number of turns, we're like, this is stupid. We can't keep running the simulation. That is how everyone plays the game. We're just gonna, you know, like repeat a certain turn a number of times. Well, that turn now used to be a turn that's a few turns after you run out of cards in your hand. So that's why we're like, oh, it's all going to be kind of the same. You just top deck, you play. You top deck, you play. Now, that turn, for most classes, you still have cards in your hand. So everything in the algorithm is a bit more bogged down than it would be in reality. We're talking like turn 15 here, by the way. So it's really far back, and the algorithm knows when the game is over. So normally, we're like, oh, turn 15, game's far over by now. But in this meta, it's like, turn 15, I don't know. Still a decent chance the game's still ongoing. And so all these factors kind of put together are like shifting everything ever so slightly. So I think if you compare the value of a 1 mana card and the value of like a 10 mana card, there's probably a 10% difference between the two, because the 1 mana card is actually 5% higher than it should be, and the 10 mana card is probably 5% lower than it should be. Just part of the effect. It doesn't affect Fishy Flyer. I just mean like this is the kind of effect, right, where you just keep adding cards into your hand. And so in case you're wondering, oh, are we really adding that many cards to the hand? Yeah, we are. It's literally breaking the algorithm. And this will be fixed in like 2 weeks, but it's a pretty big change, and we actually have to go in and do a bunch of stuff. And we just didn't have enough time to like do it after the set was released.
Yep. All right, on to the next card, which is coming in at 127, which is, once again, basically the same as the past two cards, and within 10 points of Smug Senior. It's Onyx Mage Scribe, which I think some people proclaimed as, oh, this has to be the #1 card. This is insane. Part of the reason I talked about Spellburst and tempering your expectations was partly because of this card. I think mostly because of this card. Onyx Mage Scribe, once again, it's coming out at 127. It is a 6-mana, 4/9 dragon with Spellburst. Add 2 random spells from your class to your hand. Now, this is also one of those cards that differs on score based on what class you are looking at. A little bit, you know, not like a huge amount. And I think some people look at this, and I saw it in Twitch chat. I saw also on Arena HS. They're like, okay, this has to be insane, right? Is the body good? Yeah, the body's pretty good. The dragon tag,
The body's okay.
the body's okay.
It's like a lamer Boulderfist Ogre, although for a Spellburst card, that is the stat distribution you want.
Right. You want this thing to survive. But once again, it's 6 mana. So your chances of getting the spell burst on the turn that you play it is not very high. And then afterwards, of course, because you are like putting this down, you like, and then you have to use the spell. Once again, you have to want to use the spell, and then you get 2 random spells. Random spells are not great. Okay, so here's the thing with spells. I think people need to realize this, because people remember the good spells, of which Blizzard has created a ton of really good spells. The top end has only gotten better, like exponentially better, in terms of the best spells for classes. Random spells are not good. There are a ton of extraordinarily bad spells, and not just bad like big spells, bad small spells, like 1 mana, 2 mana spells that almost do nothing. So for the arena, these are things that you're gonna get quite often, and it makes something like Onyx Mage Scribe, it keeps it from being like a meta changer, a meta beater, right? Are you going to get beat by Onyx Mage Scribe sometimes? Yes, but there is a reason why it's not overwhelmingly #1. There's a lot of difficulties in getting these spells, and 2 random spells is not as good as you think it is.
Like, it's closer to Big Ol' Whelp than it is to, like, Rusty Raider. That's, like, the way to think about its value. Like, it's not an insanely good card. And if you want to think about, like, conceptualize, based on experience, how bad random spells are, think about Evocation. It gives you more random spells than anything else. Like, think about the last time you played Evocation, and, like, out of all the spells you got, what percentage of them were, like, cards that you'd be okay with in your hand? It's actually, like, a third or something. Like, less than a third. Like, whenever I play Evocation, I'm rarely like, oh my god, so many wonderful choices. I'm always like, crap, maybe. Oh, this is good, I need to play this, crap. Like
you're always happy with. Well, there's a reason like Evocation is really, really good and it has an insane score because when you play it, you're guaranteed to get something that you are very
because you're
happy
getting
with.
like 9 cards or whatever, right?
Right.
Like,
But if you were only to get 2 cards, like, and I like the evocation example because you're like, okay, well, you know, this is just giving you like 8 random cards,
yeah.
right? And then you get to pick out of those. But if you were only to get 2, yeah, you're gonna get those really shitty quests, right? You're gonna get like the mini quest cards. You're going to get just really bad synergy spells. And that's the problem with this. So it's good. If you think that it should be number 1, well, it's not that far. It's not actually that far from number 1. It's not too far from Smug Senior. But if you think it should overwhelmingly be like the best neutral, it's just not. It will not be, because you won't get that many spells. And then when you trigger the spell burst, on average, what you're getting is not as good as you think it is.
Yep. All right. So I think we should actually end the video here and finish our top 6. We wanted to do top 9 before, but we're running a little low on time. And the next 3 are actually like 7 points below these last couple ones that we put. So that's actually somewhat significant. Now, we talked about the little inefficiency in the algorithm right now that'll be fixed in 2 weeks. And one of them, I'm sure you guys know which one I'm thinking of, is a really, really big card. So it's probably a bit higher than our algorithm puts it, but not that much higher. And it will not, like Onyx Mage Scribe is big too, right? So it's not going to be as good as the Onyx Mage Scribe. Yeah, anyway. The point is, we're pretty confident that those cards are like at least a little bit below these cards that we're talking about here. So this is your top end of the Scholomance Academy. They're pretty good. They're not game-breaking. They're interesting, and they're boring. And most of all, they will not ruin the game. That is very, very important. They will not ruin the game. Okay, Voracious Reader might ruin the game, but the rest of them will not ruin the game. Okay, Transfer Student may ruin the game sometimes, but the rest of these, it's a good ratio of not ruining the game for the latest sets, okay? Like, most sets these days ruin the game more in the neutral category than what we're seeing here. So overall, I'm pretty happy with Scholomance Academy's neutrals.
All right. So we're going to leave it off here. I want to take this opportunity to thank our Patreons. Appreciate all the support you give to us. So thank you to Nordoge, Cheng Yin, Joel Turnbull, RV Night Train, Yin, Eric L, 4P, and Brand New. Thank you. And if you want to support us, you can go to Patreon and support the Grinning Goat as well.
Yeah. Until next, we're going to cover all the other relevant neutrals, which is most of the neutrals. So see you guys in the next video.